The Hungaroring, built in 1986, has a superb location and magnificent facilities, but almost incomprehensibly, it's virtually impossible to pass on. So, to do well, you have to be on the front row of the grid, ideally in pole position, although Mansell brilliantly won from 12th place on the 6th row for Ferrari in 1989. Tyre stops are not on here because of the time you lose, and the race is going to be a long one, almost 2 hours. So for Mansell, his rivals and their cars, Hungary is a major challenge. It didn't start well here for Nigel on Friday in the first qualifying session. Second on the provisional grid after several problems, including a fire, an electrical malfunction and a spin. But with a 46-point lead over his teammate Riccardo Patrese in the championship, there's no need to panic.
I'm absolutely shattered and we haven't started. I mean, we've had 10 great races and practice sessions and that, and I think today we've had all the problems in one. We had the race car catch fire. We had the T-car stop on the circuit. So we had an exciting time, and I think with all the problems we had, probably still to be on the front of the grid, you know, we had to dig deep into the resources today.
It wasn't any better for Mansell on Saturday, for he was balked by Modena on a very quick lap and stopped out on the track later. Gerhard Berger too had a gigantic spin, as did far too many others on the debris-covered track. But when the session stopped, Patrese was still in pole position with Mansell alongside him. Martin Brundle up to 6th, Johnny Herbert down to 13th, and Damon Hill in at 25th for his second Grand Prix for Brabham. hope you got all that. You're looking now at the grid, the bottom of your picture, in pole position, slightly ahead of his teammate Nigel Mansell, is Riccardo Patrese, determined as Mansell is to win this race. It's going to be a very exciting first corner. They're leading away into it now. They take it in third gear at about 80 miles an hour, and there is a car held. It is the McLaren there going through the picture. And so they're now well away. Gerhard Berger was late getting away there into the right-hander, and they clear the pit lane. It's a 77 lap. There's the confirmation of it. That is 190 miles, as near as makes no difference, and they're going to be very long, hard, tough, hot miles. Under the bridge into the left-hander, they start to climb now up a 160-mile-an-hour stretch, and that's about the fastest part of this course. It's a lot slower in terms of flat-out speed at maximum than many of them, but it's very demanding in the section they're getting to now. There's a left-hander, then there's an 80-mile-an-hour right-hander. They go through a chicane, and then they start dropping. This is the chicane. There is Mansell leading Senna, followed by Schumacher, Berger, Brundle, Alboreto well up, Thierry Boutsen, Alesi, his teammate Capelli, Eric Comas, Johnny Herbert, and so now they are on the stretch at about 140 miles an hour, dropping down. They're on the other side of the valley.
And believe me, this is going to be a very hard afternoon's work for those drivers out there. It's extremely hot, and this is a very physical circuit, as you can see with that long shot we had just then. It's a very twisty track. There is no peace whatsoever. The shortest, the best rest they get is on the pit straight, and that's only 4 or 5 seconds. And apart from that, they're working flat out the whole time. Overtaking is a problem. Concentration will be up, and it's nearly a 2-hour race because it's a fairly slow average speed. And patience will be the order of the day, apart from the blind, the big race for the first corner, because this race last year was won and lost in the first 4 or 5 seconds from the start to the first corner. Remember, Senna got in front and fended off the attentions of the Williamses for the rest of the race and all other comers. Boutsen 2 or 3 years ago was able to do the same thing, lapping much slower than his pursuers.
And if you're saying what a ludicrous situation that the race can be decided in the first 5 or 10 seconds, I certainly would not disagree with you. But that's the way it is. There is Patrese, there is Mansell, 77 laps. Eyes peeled for that first corner as you look at Schumacher in third position on the grid. To his right, as you look at the picture, was Ayrton Senna. But now, watch Patrese. They've got traction control on the Williams and the McLaren cars, which is going to help their getaway. As usual, the red light will come on, then less than 7 seconds after will come on the green, and the Hungarian Grand Prix will be go. And that's it. Good start by Mansell on the inside. Patrese is going quicker, but Senna is up into third position ahead of Schumacher. Berger goes round Schumacher up into third position, and he's passed one of the Williams. I didn't see which it was. It's Patrese leading. It is Senna in second place. So already the McLarens are ahead of the man who hopes to win the World Championship here, Nigel Mansell, in fourth position, tailed by Michael Schumacher. So Patrese, Senna, Berger, Mansell, Schumacher, Martin Brundle is in sixth position, and they're streaking away up the hill now.
And that looks like Johnny Herbert to me. What a disappointment. And Olivier behind, and I should think that was Comas, because they were in the vicinity of each other on the grid. And it'll be a pity for the Englishman, but so much depends on the first corner. Now up front, Patrese leading. Now Mansell, I think, has given us a clear statement of intent, unless he's got a problem with the car right off the line, because he took it very easy. He's dropping right back. One almost feels he's got a problem, but either that or he's decided to take it conservatively. He's not going to try and win the World Championship today. He's going to pick up points. He's going to try and be sure. And I think that's no bad policy by Nigel Mansell, but he's fallen back a very long way on this first lap.
Indeed he has, because Patrese, Senna, Berger go through together. This long gap. Mansell followed by Schumacher, then Brundle, Michele Alboreto, situation. Prix easing away. Senna second, chased by Gerhard, Berger. Then behind them, Nigel Mansell. A long gap. Now that's Johnny Herbert's car.
Yes, it looks as if the master should be able to get these cars away and should be able to get them under control. And that's the view from Senna's camera facing backwards. That's Berger behind, rather obscured by Senna's rear wing. But that's a new view we're getting for the first time this year. It was tried in practice qualifying, but there is Riccardo Patrese. Patrese has been a new man this weekend. He has, I've seen him a few times in the paddock, and he's looked like a very angry man. What's taken to bring the best out of in him, then great, because he's driven extremely well all weekend. He was visibly driving very well in qualifying. He earned his pole position. Nigel Mansell was ragged trying to be with him as Berger presses his team leader Ayrton Senna for second place, but Patrese looks to have it under control. Mansell falling back.
And Riccardo Patrese already 3.5 seconds on lap 3, ahead of the battle for second between Ayrton Senna and Gerhard Berger. Then that long gap to Nigel Mansell, nearly 2 seconds. And the battle in this race is between the two McLarens at the present moment. I am surprised that Patrese has been able to pull away so far, and they're off all over the place. That is Eric van der Poel. He was driving in his first race in the Fonmetal. That will be him spinning off, and it's that right-hander, that's Van der Poel in the Fonmetal for the first time, having driven for Brabham unsuccessfully this year, and the Lamborghini team last year. And the popular Belgian is out of the race already, and we're on lap 3. Patrese leads, Senna second, Berger third, Mansell fourth, Schumacher fifth, and Martin Brundle is in sixth position. There is the race leader.
And Van der Poel will certainly be kicking himself for that, because he chucked it off the road all by himself. And his first ride in the Fonmetal is a much better car than the Brabham that he has driven in a race that only required patience to get probably quite a good result in this heat. In the meantime, Nigel Mansell, who we thought might have had a problem, has speeded right up, and it would appear that he's just playing this race very conservatively, and that certainly seems the sensible thing to do. Remember, if he just picks up points here, he's getting closer and closer to that championship. Heroics are not the order of the day. If he got involved with another car and got hurt and couldn't drive for the rest of the year or something, that is the one way he put himself out. This is, I believe, the right tactics by Mansell to protect his enormous lead in the championship.
An enormous lead of no less than 46 points. We're with Ayrton Senna again, second place, the reigning world champion, 3 times a world champion. And we're now with his teammate Gerhard Berger. There's a camera on Senna's car facing backwards, there's a camera on Berger's car facing forwards, and that is Ayrton Senna, and he's now 5 seconds behind Riccardo Patrese. Well, I wonder if this tyre decision that we've heard so much about was such a bright one after all, because Patrese on that harder compound is now pulling away from the 2 McLarens. Mansell has still got behind him, tight up close behind him and pushing him pretty hard. Schumacher in the Benetton, they're coming towards us now. Behind Schumacher in 6th place it is Martin Brundle. In 7th place it's still Michele Alboretti. You just see him going round the right-hander now. 8th is Alesi, and 9th in the second Ferrari is Capelli.
I wouldn't mind hazarding a guess, Murray, that Ayrton Senna has already settled for no pursuit of Riccardo Patrese. The Williams, remember, is such a superior chassis. He would have seen on the very first lap, or certainly by halfway around lap 2, that he had no chance of getting past the Williams, because he couldn't even stay with it. And I'm sure that what he's done now is to slow it right down, because he can defend second place very comfortably, and he's quite happy to be attacked from the rear so long as he looks after his tyre. So I'm quite sure he's in a tyre conservation mode rather than any attempt to try and stay with Patrese. No sliding of the car, keep the tyres as cool as possible. and let the others come to him, because the D compound softer tyres, if he can look after them in the first half of the race, will be a help to him in the second half of the race. Mansell is taking conservative, leaving himself plenty of space. He doesn't want to follow too closely behind the McLarens in case of a mistake by one of them that can collect him, and he knows he can comfortably fend off the Benettons so long as he keeps it straight.
Yes, always remember though that the danger man in this race, as far as Nigel Mansell is concerned, is his teammate Riccardo Patrese, the man who's got the best chance of beating him, although a pretty slim one in the World Championship, because Michael Schumacher is currently behind him in 5th place. Already out of the Hungarian Grand Prix, Johnny Herbert, Eric Comas, Eric van der Poel, Thierry Boutsen, so that's both the Ligiers out, and we are now on lap 6 in this 77-lap race, coming up towards 1/10 distance, looking back at Senna, from Senna's car again to Berger.
Yes, but of course, just to explain how slim that chance is for Riccardo Patrese, remember that Nigel Mansell only has to pick up 4 points in the 6 races, including this one, that remain this season. If Patrese wins every race that remains, so he's got plenty of time, and to pick up points in 1s, 2s and 3s, he's only got to score a couple of times, and Patrese can win every race for the rest of the season. He won't beat him. So Mansell's policy is of solid defence is a good one.
And there it is, there's the solid defence against Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford. Now Mansell is closing up on Gerhard Berger, no doubt about that, and Brundle is trying to take his teammate Michael Schumacher. The gap between them and Michele Alboreto is increasing, so things at the front are starting to get interesting. But I cast my mind back to the time when both Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell, driving in Ferraris, were punted off by respectively Ayrton Senna and Gerhard Berger in the McLarens at this circuit. So frustrated were the McLaren drivers in trying to get by the Ferraris that they both nudged them off, not deliberately, but that's how desperate it is to try and get past here.
And there's a turn up for the book. Fastest lap of the race so far to Mika Hakkinen in the Lotus, and that'll make Johnny Herbert regret more than ever the fact that he went out. We didn't see how or why he went out, but it was a tangle with another car on the first corner with the Ligier very Comas. But Hakkinen in 10th place already, coming from 16th or thereabouts on the grid, and now 3.5 seconds. Oh! And
Martin Brundle is determined to get past Michael Schumacher, put 2 wheels on the inside there. Now there's an interesting point about this circuit in comparison with last year, and that is that there has been a motorcycle Grand Prix at Hungary since last year, and there goes Schumacher, there goes Mansell. Mansell through and up into second place. Nigel Mansell, 3rd position, Nigel Mansell chasing Ayrton Senna, and Martin Brundle having a real go at Schumacher. Now, I was explaining that there'd been a motorcycle Grand Prix. Here's a replay of it. Now, watch Gerhard Berger, and as that's Martin Brundle on the left. Now, watch his wheels go on the grass. The curbs have been lifted here as a result of the motorcycles, and because of that, there's a lot of dust being put on the circuit. Bad news in practice, and it might be in the race.
Yes, and Brundle will be upset about that, because it was a mistake by Michael Schumacher, who went wide at the chicane, that gave him the opportunity to get alongside, and Brundle had the momentum, but of course Schumacher shut him out, and Brundle might well feel he was unfairly treated, but one would have to say that that was not a problem. And there is Mansell going through in 3rd place and getting ready to attack Ayrton Senna. Now they're coming down to the penultimate corner, and Mansell's car appears to be handling quite beautifully around here, and this is the corner that leads onto the straight. And he looks perfectly placed to attack Ayrton Senna. There's a lot of Union Jacks in the crowd just below our commentary position here, and Mansell not close enough as they went past to attack Senna that time, but the car was going well. There were lots of cheers from the crowd for Nigel Mansell, but Senna for sure will make himself as difficult as possible to pass.
And that means a lot at this circuit. So Patrese leads by 12.5 seconds now, so even if Mansell does succeed in getting past Ayrton Senna, which is going to be phenomenally difficult, he's then going to have to make up a tremendous gap between himself and Patrese in the lead before he can attack the Italian for the victory that would give him the World Championship. We're on lap 9 out of 77, and it is, as you see, Patrese, Senna, Mansell, Berger. Schumacher is in 5th place, just ahead of Brundle. Then it's Alesi and Capelli, 7th and 8th. Hakkinen and Alboreto, 9th and 10th. Gasho and Suzuki, 11th and 12th.
Yes, and something must have happened to Alboreto, because he was running 7th and he's dropped back, maybe a little spin or got it sideways, and that's allowed Mika Hakkinen up to 9th place. Now, new fastest lap of the race by Riccardo Patrese, who has just eclipsed Hakkinen's fastest lap by the odd thousandths of a second. And Mansell in position, but Senna's Honda engine moving him along very nicely, and he appears to be able to hold his own on the straight. Mansell's Williams, and that will be a considerable comfort to Senna, because he can be sure his eyes will have been glued to his mirrors from the moment he got the car straight out of the last corner. And twitching and come down the hill, quicker part of the circuit. And Senna will not be hurrying at this point of the circuit, where Senna, he needs to look after his tyres around most of the lap, only on that last corner as they go out onto the straight. As we look from Mansell's camera, that's Patrese, the fastest lap coming up on the screen. But Mansell's camera lens a little bit oily from following closely behind Senna. Now it's at this corner, where the one corner on the circuit where Senna has to be really quick with his exit, so that Mansell can't attack him on the straight. Here come the pursuers. And Senna starting to develop a queue behind him, but that's probably because he's looking after his tyres. And here we see from Mansell's onboard camera, Senna getting the power on and getting the power down first, starting to go away. Mansell's close, but I don't think close enough.
Well, let's just watch them round this corner, because we've got news from Jonathan Palmer, and it is still Senna staving off Nigel Mansell in 3rd position, followed by Gerhard Berger 4th, Schumacher in 5th position. In 6th place is Brundle ahead of Alesi and Capelli, and Jonathan Palmer is with Johnny Herbert in the pit lane.
Johnny, sadly that didn't look to be one of your longer races. We saw your car disappearing off the edge of the circuit with, I think, Comas behind. Just what happened?
I'm not sure if he went a bit wide into the first corner, and he came out and he was spinning on the outside of the circuit, and everybody braked sort of behind him, so I thought right to the inside, and I thought, well, he's bound to just spin and stay on the outside. But as the way things are going for me at the moment, he just kept going over, and it just ended up, I went right over the curb, it jumped in the air, and then I think I spun in the air, and it stalled actually in the air as well, and that was it.
Very hard luck indeed.
Lap 11, and ever cheerful Johnny Herbert, and back in the race where we work there is Ayrton Senna 2nd, Nigel Mansell 3rd, Gerhard Berger 4th, Martin Brundle in 6th position. Ahead of him is teammate Michael Schumacher. A tremendously close thing then from 2nd to 6th places. Riccardo Patrese, a new fastest lap, and this is where Mansell is going to go attack. He's coming up right alongside, and he's trying to go through, but Ayrton Senna shuts the door. Mansell moves to the outside. Now, I wonder if Ayrton Senna is going to be in trouble later on in this race. Don't forget, as James told us earlier on, that he is on the softer compound tyre, which will be getting hotter and hotter. Nigel Mansell has got the advantage of the harder compound. It could start to help him from this point onwards. So, Senna, Mansell, Berger, Schumacher and Brundle, and then behind them a long gap. Alesi is in 7th position, and in 8th position is Hakkinen. Riccardo Patrese still leading by now nearly 17 seconds.
Yeah, I'm sure, Murray, that's why there's a queue developing behind Senna's car round all but the last corner of the lap. Senna is not working his tyres too hard. He's trying to protect them. He's trying not to slide the car keep them cool. He's not worried about having a queue behind him. He's used to that. Remember, he had a huge queue last year. There was a huge pressure all the way. He was in the queue that followed Thierry Boutsen round at some, as I say, up to 3 seconds a lap slower than probably 4 or 5 cars at least behind him were able to go. When for one reason or another they got delayed, dropped back, we had pit stops, and they came rushing back to him at 3 seconds a lap, and still they couldn't pass. So Senna comfortable this time. Comfortable lead, and the pursuers in the distance, led by Jean Alesi, who's having close attention from Mika Häkkinen, who's now in 8th place.
And last year we had comparatively few retirements for a Grand Prix. You know that already we've had Johnny Herbert, Comas, Boutsen and Van der Poel out of the race. We will have a few more, but I expect this race to be fairly reliable as well. It's comparatively slow for a Grand Prix. And you can imagine everybody's frustration as we look back from Senna's car at Nigel Mansell, striving to find the opportunity to get past the Brazilian, but knowing that he's really got to force Ayrton Senna into making a mistake, which is more than unlikely. The same thing applies as far as Berger is concerned, trying to get up to and past Mansell. The same thing applies as Schumacher is with Berger, and Brundle is with Schumacher. So now, that is Riccardo Patrese. He is coming through to complete his 13th lap out of 77, and all this fighting behind him is benefiting the Italian enormously. He's on the harder compound tyres, he's extending his lead. It's nearly 20 seconds now, but Senna has speeded up. He's just done his fastest lap of the race, but it's 1.1 seconds slower than Riccardo Patrese. Confirmation of what James has just told you, that Senna is controlling things in second position, keeping Mansell behind him and making it more and more difficult for the Englishman to get those 4 points ahead of Riccardo Patrese that he needs to do at the end of this race if he is to be world champion in comparatively short time. And we're now on lap 14. Race order: Patrese, you watch Senna second, Mansell third, Berger fourth, Schumacher fifth, Brundle in 6th position. Then there is a gap of 3 seconds to Alesi in the Ferrari 7th. Häkkinen is half a second behind him, and there you can see the footwork go, and they're going off. Well, I don't think that Katayama could avoid that. He seemed to have it. Oh, he's going back to apologise. No, he is not. That's the footwork out.
Well, they were locked together, and the front suspension was broken on the footwork, and that was the result. He couldn't get away. But looked rather strange, and here we see it again. And that's Gasho, and Gasho will be disappointed with that. He's had a good meeting in qualifying here, qualified well, and doing a good job in the Belarus this year. Now back to Senna and his queue. And this looks like Jean Alesi in his Ferrari, a half spin, and no, he doesn't hold it. Now let's see if he can flip it round backwards in reverse. Yep. And and that's Alesi. He got it over the curb, and that's goodbye to Jean Alesi. And now we have a view, and they're going off all over the place. That Marshall's not in the safest place on the outside, and that's one of the Jordans. Beached in the middle of the road, and it's had quite a bang down there. There's a lot of debris around, and this may well be cause for the pace car, because that car with no wheels on the left-hand side will be very difficult to move. Now that looks like another Jordan. Maybe they both tangled. That was ahead of it, as Mansell attacking still to Ayrton Senna, and I see the safety car going up the pit road and possibly to go out onto the circuit.
Well, they dragged the reason for that. Yes, that SC and the yellow flags mean that the safety car goes out, and this is going immensely to complicate this race, which was nice and simple, with Riccardo Patrese leading on the 15th lap from Ayrton Senna, closely challenged by Nigel Mansell, and in fourth position Gerhard Berger. Now, the situation is that for the first time since this safety car ruling was introduced, the race is not going to be stopped in a situation where it would have been before. And what happens is that the observers post put out yellow flags, and that SC notice that you've already seen. That's the footwork, and the drivers are now coming up. That is Riccardo Patrese catching Damon Hill in the Brabham, and obviously Patrese does not yet realise that the safety car is out on the course. I say again, it's the first time that this has happened. The drivers won't be familiar with the process. Now, what is supposed to happen with Mansell right up with Ayrton Senna ahead of Berger and Schumacher is that they're all supposed to line up behind the safety car, who is then supposed to let past him everybody until the leader is behind him. Now, they don't know, and there's then not supposed to be any overtaking. Mansell clearly doesn't know. Senna isn't slowing up. Well, it looks as though the safety car first introduction is going to be a monumental shambles because nothing is happening.
Yes, but we had the double yellow flags, but they've stopped. Maybe the safety car has got halfway out and has retrieved itself, because the yellow flags have gone, the race appears to be continuing, no sign of the safety car on the circuit, and this is all very strange. This really is a shambles, because they announced it at the start-finish line, double yellow flags were waved around the circuit, and all very dramatic indeed, but Patrese got through it.
And that was Pierluigi Martini that you saw in the Dallara with the Ferrari engine. And incidentally, we have had the news here that next year the Scuderia Italia team is linking up with the Huntingdon Lola concern to form an entirely new Grand Prix team. Dallara are going to be out of it, but that's by the way, because over the line again goes Riccardo Patrese, completing another lap. Now look back as he goes through inside the La Rousse.
And Patrese certainly slowed right down then, because he did a lap of 1:28, and there seems to be some chaos reigning, but it would appear that the safety car is no longer in play, and that is a shambolic start to the introduction of the safety car. In the meantime, Ayrton Senna has put up his fastest lap of the race, and still fending off Nigel Mansell.
Now, let's take a deep breath and look at what the situation in the race is after that safety car mess up. We're on lap 18. Riccardo Patrese's lead has dropped from 20 seconds to just under 13. Ayrton Senna is the fastest man on the track. You see him ahead of the car that we are riding with, Nigel Mansell, who is in third position. Fourth, just behind Mansell, is Gerhard Berger in the second McLaren. Fifth and sixth are still the Benettons. There they are, of Michael Schumacher and Martin Brundle. As you look at Senna, Mansell. In seventh place, it's Mika Häkkinen, who has moved up with the fact that Michele Alboreto has dropped back. He's now in ninth place, and Capelli is eighth. 10th is Maurizio Gugelmin in the Jordan, and I don't think a Jordan's been as high as that this season. And Mansell is now once again in a position where he can hopefully attack Ayrton Senna as they go up to the 1 point on the course where passing is possible. Senna will close the door, and Mansell runs wide, got a bit of understeer there. That's where Gerhard Berger went off yesterday in a very big way in practice, in exactly the same situation. He got behind his teammate Ayrton Senna. There was tremendous turbulence from the rear wing of Senna's McLaren, and there was less downforce on the front of Berger's car, and off he went, and it was a big one.
Yes, and Senna has made his intentions very clear. He is not going to hand over second place lightly to Nigel Mansell, and in fact, Nigel Mansell, remember, is in World Championship winning position. In third place, if he finishes third, he gets 4 points, and that will make him, I tell a lie, I stand corrected. With Patrese winning, that doesn't win him the championship. He has to score 4 more points than Patrese. And but having said that, Mansell does not need to win it today. He's got 5 races to go after this one, but of course he wants to race. And Senna has got a back marker ahead, and that will complicate the issue for him, and this is the critical point on the circuit. And Mansell, and that's one of the marches. Senna, of course, will pick up the toe from the march, and Senna, the last time they went into turn 1, and that's Paul Belmondo having the best Grand Prix of his career. He qualified far and away better than he's ever done before. Mansell having a look down the inside there. And the lap before, it may have looked a little bit as if Ayrton Senna moved over on Nigel Mansell, but in fact, he came onto the brakes later than Mansell, and was therefore, he didn't move over at Mansell, he moved across in front of him, but he was already about a car length clear air in front of Mansell, and that was a legitimate move to move to the inside of the corner, and also for safety, because braking that late, if you stay on the outside, you're not slowed down enough when you get on the marbles. So Senna is going to make it very, very difficult. The Benettons queuing up behind. Brundle once again pressing Michael Schumacher.
And hats off to Paul Belmondo. He's driving in his last Grand Prix as Mansell has another look at Ayrton Senna, who can see the Williams big in his mirrors, but quite stoically stays where he is. It's Belmondo's last Grand Prix. He's run out of money, and he moved across and let Senna, Mansell, Berger, Schumacher and Brundle all through. They're completing the lap now. They are on lap 21 out of 77, and Jonathan Palmer can tell us what the situation is with the safety car.
Well, I think I can shed a little light on it, Murray. I've just spoken to the personnel who are actually in the safety car. They were told to get ready, stand by and wait by the end of the pit lane, but they were not told to actually go out at any time. So it does seem that SC board is a little premature.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good news for Damon Hill and Graham Hill fans, because Damon in the Brabham, in only his second Grand Prix, is in 13th place behind Ukio Katayama, as Senna goes through and takes Martini, who moves across in front of Nigel Mansell. He won't be too pleased about that. Now the Italian moves over and does he? He does not. And Mansell furiously shakes his fist. He's seeing Ayrton Senna get away, you see. Pierluigi Martini, who's in that Dallara, but handles like a railway carriage, is not letting Mansell past.
Yes, and Mansell has every right to wave his fist at Martini, but it's not going to take him very long to catch Senna again. I should think even if he doesn't pass him till the straight, he'll be back with Senna probably by the end of the next lap, if certainly the one after. And it just means he gives Senna a rest from his attentions for maybe 2 laps at the very outside. Trying to follow through, but not able to. He will be keen to get past Martini as quick as he can. And Martini not being very helpful. He's an experienced driver. The Dallara has been a real pig in qualifying this weekend, and in fact his teammate JJ Leto was unable to qualify in the sister car, and Martini was last on the grid.
And Mika Häkkinen has got ahead of Martin Brundle, and in the Lotus is in the points. And we just saw a Benetton move across there, and the shot changed. I can't tell you what happened, but I can tell you that Senna has now got past another tailender who is between him and Nigel Mansell. We're on lap 22, and it's still Patrese. He's increasing his lead up to it's Damon Hill. Damon Hill is ahead of Mansell, who's got Berger right behind him. So poor Nigel is suffering from the traffic. He darts through. Berger follows through in 4th position.
Discretion definitely the better part of valour for Nigel. In fact, Murray, I just wanted to say that was Brundle having a go back at Mika Häkkinen, but he didn't make it past. The cue effect by the back markers gave Martin Brundle that chance. But the problem is, when the cars all close up, when you go down the inside, you've actually got nowhere to put your nose, because the cars in front are not giving you a car length of clear air between them. And I suspect Martin Brundle, although he got alongside, had nowhere to go. He probably did well to emerge with everybody intact. And that's an important feature of this race. Even on the island, there's going to be plenty of frustration during it. There will be mistakes made, people will go off, and the circuit's unforgiving in that respect. And there will be dust on it too. We've seen how the curbs that Murray referred to earlier have been taken down, have allowed the edges to be very dusty, and the wheel off creates a lot of earth, very dry earth on the circuit.
And this traffic situation is now creating a three-part race. Part 1, Riccardo Patrese on lap 23, leading by 21 seconds. This is part 2, Senna, Mansell and Berger together. And as James forecast, it hasn't taken Nigel Mansell very long to close with Ayrton Senna. It'll take him a lot longer to get past if he can. And then part 3, behind the 3 cars that we're looking at now, is Mika Häkkinen, and ahead of him well, watch this for the moment. There's Senna, Mansell and Berger as Michael Schumacher comes through. He's in 5th position, Häkkinen is 6th, Brundle down to 7th, Capelli in the Ferrari is in 8th position.
And from the onboard shot in Nigel Mansell's car, when they go around that last corner onto the straight, you get a tremendous, a very good view of how the driver in front has the advantage because he gets the power on first. And Mansell has to wait until Senna hits the throttle there because he's close enough. These cars have such enormous acceleration that he will inevitably risk hitting Senna up the back if he hits the throttle before Senna does. He therefore has to wait, and that gives Senna just that little advantage that he needs because of the massive acceleration. Just that split second that it takes the following driver to react is enough for the lead driver to get what's in this case is a substantial enough lead to hold to the next corner.
Now, as the race is comparatively static at the moment, Riccardo Patrese leading this battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, Senna, Mansell and Berger. I think, James, is the time for you to tell us some pretty sensational news you've got about potential driver developments and moves for 1993.
Yes, we see a faster start for Patrese, and as is the nature of Grand Prix racing at this time of the year, there tends to be as much excitement outside the cars and in the paddock as anywhere else. And of course the big problem for this year is a situation of 3 into 2 won't go. The Williams, the all-conquering Williams team, have the world's 3 top drivers, Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell, all trying to fit into 2 cars. And the situation is that Alain Prost, as far as we can work out, is already signed for Williams, or certainly very much committed to the Williams team for next year. Nigel Mansell is reported to have been demanding $23 million to drive for the Williams team next year, which one feels, certainly the Williams team are very upset about it. They feel that it's much too much money for them when everybody else is queuing up. Ayrton Senna has today countered that offer and said to me that he will drive for the Williams team for nothing. He wants that to be known. He wants to win the World Championship. He wants no retainer. He said to me, I will drive for the Williams team for $23 million less than Nigel Mansell wants, or whatever he wants, whatever the case is, I am prepared to drive for Williams for nothing. He points also to when McLaren had himself and Alain Prost in 1988, what a good season's racing it was, as Mansell still pushes away at Senna on today's race. But Senna controlling it at his speed, remember, looking after those tyres. But the fact of the matter, and the problem in the team, it's a tremendous mess for Frank Williams to sort out, an unenviable situation for him, although he's in the enviable position of having a queue of drivers at his door, and the enviable position of having far and away the most dominant car that we've seen in modern Grand Prix times. But to add to the confusion, Mansell seems to be pricing himself out of the market. He's also making demands for favouritism in the team that the team are not prepared to meet. And remember, Frank Williams felt lent upon 2 years ago when Mansell arrived at Williams. And Murray wants to put in a word here.
Well, it's not about that, it's about what's happening with Nigel Mansell. Senna easing away, and you will have noticed that now the fastest man on the track is Michael Schumacher, who has closed right up on Gerhard Berger. And there's the McLaren, behind him is the Benetton, ahead of him is Nigel Mansell. Riccardo Patrese lead now on lap 27 is 24 seconds. Berger 4th, Schumacher 5th, Häkkinen in 6th position. There is Martin Brundle, who is in 7th position. So it's getting very exciting, and we're getting towards the half distance point. Not there by way yet, but not all that far off. 77 laps is the race distance.
And returning to the 3 into 2 won't go situation, the problem for Senna and for Frank Williams is not only that Nigel Mansell is both with demands for conditions and demands for money, potentially putting himself out of the market. Alain Prost is blocking and using everything he can, and possibly with a contract, I might speculate, blocking any arrival of Ayrton Senna in the team. His public statement suggests that he said publicly he's happy to drive with Ayrton Senna, but behind the scenes he is doing everything he can to make sure that Senna doesn't join the French engine team. And this is a problem that's making Senna a very unhappy man. He says he just wants to race with anybody. He's happy to do that, and I certainly agree with him as he fights his way through the traffic, but at the moment keeping a comfortable little bit of air between himself and Mansell, as Schumacher, who certainly speeded up a bit just now and has got away from Mika Häkkinen for the moment, and Schumacher seems to have got past Berger.
And a new lap record, there it is, Nigel Mansell's fastest lap, 1:21.023, has broken Bertrand Gachot's lap record in the Jordan Ford last year by half a second. The Englishman is now really pressuring Ayrton Senna ahead of him, and I remind you again that Nigel Mansell ought to have a tyre advantage in terms of longevity. Ayrton Senna is driving at his pace to preserve his softer compound tyres as much as he can, and on lap 29 now, Riccardo Patrese has gone through. He's down into that first right-hand corner as the leaders come out of the straight, and it's Senna second, Mansell third. Now, Mansell will attack again, I have no doubt about that. He needs to be a bit closer than he is as he comes out of the circuit, and off goes the Ferrari. I didn't see whether it was Capelli. It was Capelli, and now Mansell is right with Ayrton Senna again on lap 29 out of 77, and the three-part race that I was talking about is now Patrese in the lead by a long way. This is the second part, Senna and Mansell. Berger is in 4th position. Then there is a small gap, Michael Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen, the Finn in only his 2nd season of Grand Prix racing, this year in a real Lotus motor car, and that is Pierluigi Martini out of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and I suspect, I didn't see where he was, but away he goes, and whether that means he's going to have to retire or not, I don't know. It might have been a stop-go penalty. I didn't, because of the positioning of the car, I didn't see clearly where he was. But anyway, the battle for second continues with Mansell pushing as hard as he can. Senna just resisting all the way. Gerhard Berger looking for an opportunity to close up with and get by Nigel Mansell, who will not win the World Championship today if he stays where he is in relation to Riccardo Patrese, who is now on his 30th lap, leading by now Mansell goes again, and Senna sees the shape of the Williams Renault in his mirrors, moves across, which he's perfectly entitled to do, and this is exactly what Senna did last year. And the man behind him then was the man who is behind him now, Nigel Mansell, but the difference was that Senna was in the lead. Riccardo Patrese is keeping his World Championship hopes alive on a possible 10 points And the reason that we saw Martini stop was that he had a stop-go penalty, we believe, for balking Nigel Mansell. Well, we commented adversely on it at the time, so it makes sense. And that stop-go penalty is 10 seconds. The team is notified that he's going to be brought in. He's brought into his pit on the black flag. He has to wait for 10 seconds and then accelerate away. And obviously, the penalty effect is greater than 10 seconds because you also have to allow for the slowing down to stop and the speeding up to race speed after the stop. Lap 31. Now, again, Mansell will try to get past. Again, Senna will move across. And Mansell has got to curb his natural enthusiasm to get by. Well, he's not close enough to even try it on this lap. Senna, Mansell. They have lapped everybody up to the 11th place man, Andrea de Cesaris. Maurizio Gugelmin is in 10th place in the Jordan, going well. And out of the race, Herbert, Comas, Van der Poel, Boutsen, Katayama, Gasho, Alesi, and Stefano Modena. Mansell looking to the right, then to the left. And all Senna has to do is sit in the middle of the circuit. It is a tragedy to me that a circuit with as interesting a layout as this hasn't got the one thing that's really needed, the opportunity for people to get past, like they have in Portugal, for instance. The result is bunching, what looks tremendously exciting and is tremendously exciting, but it's not giving anybody the opportunity to improve. Then Gerhard Berger goes past. Mansell ran wide, and Gerhard Berger, that's exactly what he was looking for and that I was talking about. Mansell ran wide, made a mistake. Gerhard Berger goes through. Somebody has gone up, put his wheels onto the dust there. Gerhard Berger is third behind Senna and is already closing up with his teammate. Mansell's out of that third position down to fourth. From 4 points to 3 in the World Championship, and Schumacher is now behind Mansell as opposed to Berger, and Martin Brundle is still behind his teammate.
Yes, and one of the problems that Mansell has is an old problem in that it's very difficult to drive conservatively when you're used to it. And there's the picture. Mansell ran wide at that corner. That was, I think, a lapse in concentration because he got wide, and it is very slippery offline here. And one of the problems that you have when you're running slower than you normally do conservatively is to keep the concentration level up, and that's an age-old problem. And it tripped Mansell up there, and he may kick himself because he had to. And it looked to me as if Brundle had got past Hakkinen there, so there's a bit of toing and froing going in that little group behind. Let's have a look, and Brundle, in all the excitement, they were concertina together, has slipped by Mika Hakkinen. Hakkinen had been looking for a way to slip inside Schumacher, and there's a good battle between the three green and yellow cars there. Quite confusing, but the Lotus is a slightly different livery and different front wings.
Now you see Ayrton Senna coming up to Andrea de Cesaris and taking the Tyrrell. The next car he's going to try and lap is his friend and compatriot Maurizio Gugelmin in the Jordan Yamaha that he's closing up with now. So Ayrton Senna is, as ever, taking advantage of the traffic. He's quite ruthless and enormously competent in carving his way past tail enders. Not that Nigel Mansell is any slouch, but as you can see, the gap between Mansell and Berger is now half a second. And the gap between Senna and Berger in second and third places is 1.6 seconds. So there is Senna, followed by Maurizio Gugelmin, followed by de Cesaris, followed by Berger. De Cesaris has a look at Gugelmin, and Mansell is frustratedly still sitting behind the Austrian in the McLaren.
Yes, and Berger will be very frustrated. The last thing he wants is de Cesaris having his own battle right ahead of him. And Mansell is well placed now to have a go at Gerhard Berger if he can hold it onto the straight. They're coming around. This is the second to last corner, second gear, hairpin. And Mansell climbing all over the back of Berger. That might not be the right thing to do. Berger should go slowly into the corner and then boot it early. Ah, yes, you see, and that Berger got the power on early, but Mansell was quicker than him earlier in the race. And Mansell goes through, Berger leans on him. And it seems that Berger fighting back, and tremendous stuff. Mansell seems, or rather Berger seems slower on the straight than Senna because he wasn't able to defend his position. That's twice we've seen Mansell go past Berger quite easily on the straight.
That was vintage Nigel Mansell stuff. Here's a replay of it, up alongside the McLaren, holds the racing line, forces Gerhard Berger out and down a place as Schumacher and Brundle stay there.
And in fact, this is a good lap for Britain because Martin Brundle has got past Michael Schumacher while that was happening. And Martin Brundle has moved up into 5th place. And that's Mansell again, but by then we could see he was past Berger. And in the meantime, Senna has got an enormous lead. He's got to the track, and somebody's off, and that's De Cesaris. And that wasn't the cleverest moment, and Häkkinen still behind him. De Cesaris will have very ungrippy tyres for the moment, which could frustrate Häkkinen. He should watch out for that, because he'll have those hot, sticky tyres pick up the dust and earth in that situation. And meanwhile, Ayrton Senna has given himself a 5.5 second cushion over Nigel Mansell, but I don't think it'll take Mansell very long to catch in as soon as he's clear of the traffic. A couple of laps, 3 laps probably, and he'll be right with Senna again, and that battle will be rejoined.
Lap 35 coming up to half distance in this 77 lap race. Maurizio Gugelmin there. You see on the right Andrea De Cesaris cutting the corner, and in the process bringing a lot of dust and earth onto the track with him. Fortunately, it looked to me as though it finished off the racing line. You see Martin Brundle there lapping Gugelmin, and the race order on lap 35 now is Prix leading by 28 seconds now, with Senna in 2nd position. Nigel Mansell back into 3rd place ahead of Berger, 4th. 5th is Martin Brundle, very much in the points. 6th is teammate Michael Schumacher. 7th is Mika Häkkinen. 8th is Capelli, and in 9th position it is Michele Alboreto in the footwork.
Yes, it seems a bit unfair. Poor Riccardo Patrese having his best race of the season, we've almost forgotten. But of course, he is out front. He's now taking it very easily. It's and Mansell, surprise, surprise, new fastest lap of the race, and slicing into Ayrton Senna's lead over him. But Riccardo Patrese, 27 seconds clear of the field, and having eased up very considerably. Mansell just over 20 dead. Patrese lapping 3 seconds a lap slower, because that's the pace that Senna's been able to go at. And taking it easy. Patrese now in the finishing mode, no longer racing, just watching the gap behind, able to dictate the race very comfortably and looking after his car. There is Patrese going over the line, so we even had a look at him. Slapping Damon Hill there.
Damon Hill in 14th place in his one previous Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix in the Brabham. He failed to finish, having driven an excellent race. And we have 9 retirements. We have 9 retirements so far. Johnny Herbert, Comas, Van der Poel, Boutsen, Katayama, Gasho, Alesi, Modena and Carl Wendlinger. Now here is Martin Brundle, and he is in 5th position ahead of Schumacher. 7th is Häkkinen, pushed out of the points. You see now, look back and you do not see the Lotus, so he's dropped back quite a long way. And Häkkinen, I've made a mistake, I apologise. It's just been pointed out to me that he's in 12th position. Sorry to him and to the LaRousse team for that. And Patrese leads now by 26 seconds. Well, Riccardo Patrese, at the present moment, at half distance, with the lead that he has got, is starting to look more and more certain for his 6th Grand Prix win. A Grand Prix win which will not only ensure that Mansell there does not win the World Championship here in Hungary, but will also mean, of course, that it will go on beyond the Belgian Grand Prix, which is the next one. After Belgium, we have Italy, Portugal, Japan, the last one of the year in Adelaide in Australia. And now we are with Riccardo Patrese, the race leader, driving his usual steady, cool, calm and very collected race.
Yes, and now Ayrton Senna has speeded up and is showing us what he can do. He must have decided that by now, as we're around about half distance in the race, that it's safe to give it a bit more on the softer compound tyre. Remember that as the tyre wears down, so they build up less heat because there's less mass of rubber to retain that heat, and for that reason you're able to give them more. So 40 laps to go, just coming up towards half distance. And Senna has gone right down to 1:20.4, his fastest lap of the race, and he's obviously trying to make a break from Mansell, but Mansell is showing that there's nothing wrong with his tyres because he is still catching Ayrton Senna, but not as quickly as we expected because Senna has really put the hammer down in that. And there is Mansell, a spin, that's Patrese.
Yeah, Riccardo Patrese, the race leader, off, and he's out of the race unless he can get going under his own traction, and he's not going to. This is an astounding development, and it's going to mean that we've got the same situation here this year that we had last year. Senna leading and Mansell in second position. There goes the McLaren, and there goes the Williams. So Patrese, even if he can't rejoin now, he's being pushed. Well, tragic now. Here we are with Riccardo Patrese. He goes into the left-hander, loses the back of it. The circuit here has been completely resurfaced, but I am sure that... Now, I'm not sure. I was going to say he's going to be excluded. It will depend on whether the stewards judge that he was pushed back into the race. But anyway, now Ayrton Senna leads and Nigel Mansell is second. And Mansell will win the championship if he stays where he is now, depending on where Riccardo Patrese gets, assuming that he is allowed back in the race by the stewards. I didn't see whether his traction got him back on the track, but there were certainly marshals pushing very hard. And Mansell will soon have a radio signal from his pit telling him exactly what the situation is, although I'm sure he will have seen Patrese's car. It was sticking out on the circuit. The Union Jacks are waving in our area of the grandstand now because they see Senna go past in the lead. They see Mansell go past in second position, 1.7 seconds behind the McLaren. Berger is up into third place, 5 seconds behind Mansell. Brundle is now fourth. Schumacher is fifth. Hakkinen is in sixth position. So whatever, it looks as though Riccardo Patrese, even if he isn't out of the race, is not going to score any points. There's a long gap, and he goes past me now. Riccardo Patrese has passed me seventh on the track, but I don't know whether he's officially in the race.
Yes, I would have thought that would have to be adjudged outside assistance to move the car, and Patrese will be out. But the fact of the matter is, however it is adjudged, what it means is that Patrese cannot possibly get through. He could catch the leading group, but I doubt whether he could fight his way back through them because he's got to pass Hakkinen, Schumacher, Brundle, Berger, and Mansell and Senna certainly not, because Nigel Mansell now is virtually assured he only has to finish this race to win the World Championship today, which will be an enormous relief and joy to him. I would imagine that he will press Senna all the way. He will take no risk, but I'm sure that if an opportunity presents itself, he would love to take the championship by winning this race. He won't take any risk, but he will, I'm sure, look for an opening and try and win the race if he can. He's a racer at heart, that's his trademark, and he won't be able to resist the opportunity. He won't take a risk. He's suffered too much in the past to do that. But he will position himself to pick up the pieces. And there's somebody else going off. That looks like a Ligier to me.
It's a Tyrrell, and it is Andrea de Cesaris motoring on. He's having an exciting rally crossing afternoon. That's the second time he's gone off and taken dust and earth with him. But we're on lap 41 in this 77-lap race in what might well be the finishing order. Because, as James said, it's for sure that Nigel Mansell is not going to do anything impetuous and try and win the race for the sake of winning the race, when in the process he might lose it and the championship here in Hungary. Gerhard Berger is 3.8 seconds behind Mansell, but even if he catches and passes the Englishman, it wouldn't affect Nigel's championship situation, because he would still be on those vital 4 points that he needs. Michael Schumacher is in fourth position. That is Mansell. Now coming towards us is the battle for fourth. Berger, then third, Martin Brundle, who is fourth, Schumacher, who is fifth, and Mika Hakkinen is in sixth position in the Lotus, and he is 6 seconds behind Schumacher. Well, everything that Mansell has fought for 13 years, because he started his Grand Prix career in 1980 with Lotus. We're looking back now from Senna's car, the race leader. He is potentially on his second victory of 1992, a thin year for Senna, because he won in Monaco. He's only in fourth position in the World Championship at the moment. He's coming up now to lap Damon Hill, who is still going strong in the Brabham. And incidentally, in case there's any confusion, I said earlier on that Damon failed to finish in the British Grand Prix. He was actually 18th, and if my memory serves me correctly, not officially classified as a finisher, although he was in that position. So, hope that's cleared that up. Mansell is about to take the Judd V10 powered Brabham. He does so. Damon Hill, who is the test driver for Williams and has done an enormous mileage in the car that Mansell is driving. The crowd rises and they see Senna leading, Mansell in second place. This is lap 43 of the Hungaro ring. It's as hot as ever it was, and Jonathan Palmer has got news for us from the pit lane.
Well, I'm in the Williams pit now, and they really cannot believe it. Frank Williams, of course, watching his monitor, saw that mistake from Prix. They've been thumbing through the rule book, trying to work out exactly what the situation is, and Sheridan Finn has reported that he thinks that Prix will not be excluded, but at the moment we do not know for sure.
Well, I'm certainly not going to pass an opinion. Prix is in seventh place, according to the monitor that gives me that information at the present moment. So the fact that he is still being shown by the official lap scoring system indicates that he is in the race. Meantime, you've seen that Pierluigi Martini is out of it. There he is, climbing the Armco, having left his Dallara Ferrari, the Scuderia Italia car, which will be replaced by a Lola-built car in 1993. Eric Broadley and Brian Sims are both here from the Huntingdon factory, and Senna leads.
Well, if that is the case, and Prix is still racing eligibly for a result, he can still stop Nigel Mansell winning the championship today, because if he finishes less than 4 points behind Nigel Mansell, he will take it to the championship for the next race. Of course, it's only academic, but that means if Mansell was to remain in second place behind Senna, and Prix could make fourth place and get 3 points, he would take the championship on to the Belgian Grand Prix in a purely academic way, but rather aggravating way for Nigel Mansell. The interesting thing would be that at the end of the race, if the stewards allow it and await a protest, whether anybody will, any of the other teams would in fact protest a domestic Williams situation. Of course, there's the lure of slightly additional prize money for those who move up a place if Prix is excluded. And Michael Schumacher has found his way back past Martin Brundle. So the two Benetton drivers, as we've seen so many times since Martin got his act together from Canada onwards, battling away in-house, changing places, and since the Canadian Grand Prix, the two Benettons and some of Monaco have been pretty much tied together.
Well, as you watch Ayrton Senna now on his 45th lap, and there's the caption which indicates the top 6, I'll tell you that the fastest man on the circuit at the present moment is Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford. He is lapping 7/10 of a second faster than Ayrton Senna, the race leader, in his efforts to close with Gerhard Berger, who is in 3rd place. So, lap 45, Senna leads Mansell by 3.3 seconds. Mansell is 2.1 seconds ahead of Berger, and he is 1.8 seconds ahead of Schumacher, who is 4 seconds ahead of Brundle in 5th place. Häkkinen is 6th, 3.5 seconds behind Brundle. 7th is Prix, 9 seconds behind Häkkinen, and lapping 1 second a lap faster than the Lotus ahead of him. 8th is Capelli's Ferrari. 9th is Alboretto's Footwork, as Ayrton Senna comes up to lap again. Paul Belmondo driving in his last race for the March Ilmore team. There is Nigel Mansell. That is Gerhard Berger. There is Michael Schumacher. Behind him is Martin Brundle. You see the Englishman going through in 5th position.
Yes, and it is interesting because Schumacher, who so comprehensively out-qualifies Martin Brundle all the time, and it's very often over a second a lap, which is really a lot between drivers, and yet Martin Brundle has been pretty much a match for him in the races. They've tended to be in traffic, but now there is a chance. Well, Schumacher's caught Berger, so of course his speed is now maintained, or rather dictated, by Gerhard Berger in front of him. Martin Brundle has clear air in front of him, and he has a chance now to recatch them. But when Schumacher got away, he did show the speed that one would expect, because it seems almost impossible that he wouldn't be a fair bit quicker in the races, even though out-and-out qualifying speed and racing speed the gap tends to close up in those two conditions. Senna. Mansell clearly happy to run in 2nd place. I'm surprised that he isn't shadowing Senna a bit more closely, trying to force a mistake. I would see there's Berger going past the back marker there, no problem at all. But I'm surprised that Mansell isn't keeping the pressure on Senna, just to force not a mistake from him, force him to push his tyres to go off or something like that, because it would surely be nice to win the World Championship with a win. Riccardo Patrese now 7 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen in 7th place. Remember, to foil Nigel Mansell for today, he certainly will need to get to 3rd place, and with Häkkinen, Brundle and Schumacher to pass, that's a pretty tall order, and he's not actually lapping particularly quickly. Oh well, he's put his fastest lap of the race up, Patrese, so he's the quickest man on the circuit at the moment.
I'm interested to see that Schumacher and Brundle, 4th and 5th, are both going very quickly indeed now. You're watching Ayrton Senna, race leader by nearly 4 seconds. Mansell, far be it from me to put thoughts in his mind, but he seems to be settling for 2nd position now as Ayrton Senna goes through. That is Mansell. Now, the two cars to watch in particular are the Benettons. There is Brundle, 3rd. Berger 3rd. Schumacher 4th. That's Brundle in 5th position. And Brundle is lapping faster than anybody at the present moment, except Senna and Mansell, who's just broken the lap record again. 119.711, 111.35 miles an hour. So Mansell is is not content to let Senna get away. He wants to keep pressuring the Brazilian. I would doubt that he'll try and force past him, but he wants to let Senna know that he's there, and he also wants to give Senna a hard time on those softer compound tyres. Mansell is on, as you know, the C compound. Senna is on the D compound. If Mansell pushes Senna hard enough, it's not inconceivable that Senna's tyres will go off. He'll have to slow and give Mansell an opportunity to go through and win the championship by winning in Hungary, as into the pits comes Maurizio Gugelmin in his Jordan Yamaha, his teammate Stefano Modena having already retired, and that is Gugelmin. It's a tyre stop.
And up front, Senna just broke that lap record, and Mansell came behind him and re-broke it. So, new fastest lap of the race for Senna, and 3.4 seconds later, another new fastest, even faster lap of the race for Nigel Mansell, and they are starting to stretch away from Gerhard Berger, some 7 seconds behind Mansell. Mansell just chipping away at Senna's lead, and behind Schumacher, very much stuck behind Berger. Brundle has closed, well, he had closed the gap, and he's dropped back a lot on that lap. In fact, Brundle just dropped back a little bit to 4 seconds behind teammate Michael Schumacher. I don't know why, I didn't think there was traffic. Meanwhile, Riccardo Patrese has been closing in pretty fast. He is just about caught Mika Häkkinen, just under 3 seconds behind him now. So he will soon be amongst the traffic. There he is. No, sorry, that was Mansell. Mansell, a very oily rear wing from the muck thrown out by Senna's McLaren, a bit of oil, and all the dirt and dust then sticks to that. Because this track is dusty. Senna goes over the line. 4 seconds the gap.
Which means that Ayrton Senna has pulled away a bit from Mansell. There's the world champion. Conserving those tyres magnificently. Senna is a master at this. He's 3 times world champion. This is his 137th Grand Prix. He has been racing for 23 years now, out of the 32 years that he is old. And he goes past and takes Michele Alboretto's footwork. And the race order on lap 50 out of 77. Still a long way to go, but Senna pacing himself. Senna leads Mansell by 4 seconds, who is 8 seconds ahead of Berger, third, who's got Schumacher half a second behind him in 4th position. Schumacher is 3.8 seconds ahead of 5th place Martin Brundle, who is 9 seconds ahead of Häkkinen, who has got a rapidly closing Riccardo Patrese in 7th place, 3.5 seconds behind him. Now, if Riccardo Patrese gets past Häkkinen up into 6th position, he will be on 1 World Championship point. Mansell is currently on 6 for 2nd position if he stays where he is. So Mansell would win the championship unless Patrese can make further progress through the field. And Riccardo Patrese isn't going to give up. He wants to be world champion just as much as Nigel Mansell does. Riccardo Patrese, who started his world championship career as long ago as 1977, driving for the Shadow racing team that was Michele Alboretto. This is Ayrton Senna on lap 51, and the fastest lap that we have so far is that of Nigel Mansell, lap 48, 1 minute 19.6, very much a lap record, nearly 2 seconds faster. And Paul Belmondo in the March Ilmore in his last Grand Prix before he runs out of money comes in to take on a new set of tyres. And is he stalled the engine? No, he has not. He gets away. He is in 12th position and of course has been lapped twice by this man, Ayrton Senna. Well, as James told you earlier on, there's all sorts of agitation and rumours here about what is going to happen in 1993. Many of those rumours revolving around this man, Ayrton Senna, and where he'll be next year in the racing cockpit. As Mansell comes through and takes Alboreto. The gap now is 8 seconds, so Mansell's dropping well back.
Yes, and a new fastest lap for the race for Ayrton Senna, a new lap record there, and he's really turning it on. But yes, what a pity it is that I think the rules actually preclude Frank Williams, even if he could be persuaded it, from running 3 Williams Renaults in the World Championship next year, and then we could see the 3 top men of their era all battling it out in the same car, and that would be great for Grand Prix racing. In the meantime, I should have added that Ayrton Senna has not yet had a chance to deliver the news to Frank Williams that he wishes to drive for them for nothing, because he just wants to go racing and he wants to win the World Championship. And but he will be doing that as soon as he gets the chance after today's race. He hopes before he leaves the circuit tonight. Fastest lap for Senna. Mansell not appearing to chase, but the surprise of it all is that unless he's got a car problem, Riccardo Patrese, well, he's speeded up again. Patrese, new fastest lap, he's eclipsed Senna's fastest lap, but he was going very slowly for a couple of laps and dropped back from Mika Hakkinen. And I was beginning to think that he lost his stomach for the fight, because having driven so well and then made that apparently inexplicable error, it could be the only possible explanation is that he might have some gearbox trouble. If he's got gearbox trouble, that could certainly prompt you to spin. There is Patrese. He is now coming out of the last turn as Hakkinen goes across the line. And if he's got gearbox trouble and it's playing up, then maybe that's why his times are constantly up and down. We'll maybe Jonathan can try and find out for us down in the pits.
And meantime, we are still trying very hard indeed to get an official ruling on this Patrese situation, whether or not he got back into the race after spinning to a standstill under his own power, or whether he was helped or judged to have been helped by the marshals, who were undeniably pushing at his car at one point. And if we get an official ruling, we'll let you know as soon as we know ourselves, because it's getting more and more important. Although Patrese in 7th position, as you watch race leader Ayrton Senna coming through to complete his 53rd lap, Patrese in 7th position for the last couple of laps has not made up any ground and time on Mika Hakkinen, who is currently in that final World Championship point scoring position, 6th, 1 point. There goes Mansell. Here comes Berger in 3rd place. Behind him, never giving up, Schumacher and Brundle. And Martin Brundle has closed the gap between himself and his teammate Michael Schumacher. Berger goes through.
Yes, Schumacher now will be watching the footwork ahead. And he will be hoping that Berger gets slowed down on the corner onto the straight, and that's Michele Alboreto that's in front of them, very experienced, and I would think as soon as Berger catches him, he'll probably let him through. But Schumacher will be hoping otherwise, because this is what he has to learn. This is where you give your attention very, very closely to the car in front. The 2 Benettons right up behind Berger.
Position has fought his way through the field and is now about to take, we think, 6th position, as De Cesaris is passed by Ayrton Senna, going into the right-hander at the end of the start and finish straight on lap 56 out of 77. And Senna is leading Mansell by 9.5 seconds now. And I am full of admiration about the way that the Brazilian is preserving his tyres. Berger has pulled away from Schumacher a bit. There's the German, behind him Martin Brundle. Now, who is going to go through in 6th position? It's Mika Hakkinen. Where is Riccardo Patrese? Because Patrese was right with the Finn, and there he is, into the pits, and it looks as though he's blown his engine, and this will certainly mean that if Nigel Mansell can stay where he is, the World Championship will be his at the end of the Hungarian Grand Prix. He's on lap 56 out of 77, because undeniably Riccardo Patrese is coming in to retire.
Yes, an enormous amount of oil there you see down the left side pod. coming from the front of the engine, that would appear, or that area. Oil tank, of course, sits there, and that looks very terminal indeed for Riccardo Patrese. And I can only speculate, but he may have got some earth into the engine, but that certainly saves the stewards from any tricky decisions. And look at the front of Gerhard Berger's car for a bit of oil. Remember, of course, the oil gets on the car, then the dirt all sticks to it, and there's a lot of dust on this circuit. It's very, very dry here, hasn't rained for ages, and the curbs, as Murray said earlier, for the motorcyclists have been taken away. And Gerhard Berger holding on to third place.
And if it was a Renault engine failure, we don't know for certain it was, although it looks as though it was, that will be the first one that the Renault concern has suffered in 2 years of Grand Prix racing, and that was an incredible achievement. But maybe Jonathan Palmer knows better. He's waiting to talk to us.
Yes, without doubt, Murray, it is an engine failure. The rear of the car has just been, or the car has been wheeled into the garage. The rear is being taken off, and it is covered with engine oil, so there's little doubt about that.
Thank you, Jonathan. And Berger, Schumacher and Brundle continue to fight for the third position, with Senna on lap 57 leading Mansell by 12.5 seconds, and that battle is 12 seconds behind Gerhard Berger. So Mansell on his way, the World Championship in his grasp, but it's been there before, and Nigel has refused to talk about the World Championship at all. He says, I've been in this position 3 times before, because he was second in 1986, 1987 and 1991. And he will be sitting in that cockpit now, determined to retain his position. He's 15.5 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger. He will know that Riccardo Patrese is out of the race, because his team will have reported that to him by the pits to car radio. And Nigel Mansell is currently sitting pretty, but 20 laps still to go.
Yes, and the interest in this race now centres on Michael Schumacher. He was having a look at Gerhard Berger as they went into turn 1, as they went past. But it seems that with the Benetton running obviously high downforce set up here, that the McLaren, even though it would appear that Berger's car is not as quick on the straight as Ayrton Senna's, from whom we're watching now from Senna's engine cover, as he goes past the Ferrari of Capelli. And Ferrari really have a great deal of work to do, because you saw then the ease with which Senna marched past him on the straight, and they've got an engine that's not up to scratch, and they've got a chassis that's not up to scratch. However, they have got John Barnard, who's already started work for them, and although it'll take a while, no miracles can be exacted there, and only an interim car, which will be a quick job to plug the gap for next year. 1994 is the earliest that one would expect to see a real sort of revival. This is a replay of Senna. You saw how fast he was going as he went past the Ferrari there. But and that's his rear viewing camera, and one has to say that's a dirty lens too. So the car's looking quite battle-weary in terms of dirt. Senna hasn't been following anybody closely apart from back markers when passing him, and he's looking quite pristine. We compare that with Gerhard Berger. But yes, the Ferrari revival would certainly be welcomed throughout the sport of Grand Prix racing, because they have a special magic, and it's always a sad thing to see them struggling. 1994 will be the time to start really looking for a Ferrari revival. One hopes that next year they'll be on their way, but realism says 1994 the earliest. A little lock brake there from Martin Brundle. Saw that puff of smoke off the left front wheel as it went light, turning into the left-hand corner. And Schumacher not in a position to challenge Berger's McLaren yet.
Well, Senna is marching away from Nigel Mansell now. He increased his lead on lap 58 of 17 seconds to 21 seconds on lap 59, but Mansell is still 11.5 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, and it looks to me as though the Englishman is just driving an extremely cautious and careful race, as he rightly should, because victory here in Hungary is irrelevant to Mansell. He would like to win, obviously, but he doesn't have to win the World Championship. This is the interest and excitement as far as places are concerned, because you're looking at Gerhard Berger third, Michael Schumacher in fourth position. Martin Brundle has dropped back on the previous lap. There you just saw a flash of the Benetton in the background. He's about 2 seconds behind the challenging Michael Schumacher, who again looks as though he's going to finish in the points. He's third in the World Championship. That is Martin Brundle in the background, and he's closing up again on Schumacher. He may have just eased off to give his tyres a rest, let them cool down. Maybe they've gone off and he lets them rest to come back again. Lets them rest in comparative terms by just going a bit slower so that he can speed up and close. And this is yet another indication of how extraordinarily difficult, not to say impossible, it is to get past at the Hungaroring unless the man in front is prepared to help you. We are on lap 61 now. Only 16 laps between Nigel Mansell and his first World Championship in 13 years of Grand Prix racing, with Lotus, with Williams, with Ferrari, and then with Williams again. And it wasn't until he joined the Williams team after 1980 to 1984 with Lotus that things really took off for Mansell, when he won the European Grand Prix in the Williams, which was held at Brands Hatch that year. And you can see now that Brundle is with Schumacher, Schumacher is with Berger, Berger is in third position, Ayrton Senna is on lap 62, and we're still waiting for Nigel Mansell to come through. The gap before was 24 seconds, and there's still no sign of the Englishman. There he is. Now, he's coming into the pits. Puncture, question mark. This has happened to Mansell before. Well, just as Prix went out sensationally, this is a sensational development that could affect Nigel Mansell's World Championship chances. It is lap 62, and the Englishman comes in. Now, why? Is it a retirement or is it tyres? Well, they're certainly changing tyres. Meantime, I'm looking for Berger going through, for Schumacher coming through, for Brundle coming through. It's only a short stop. Mansell accelerates out of the pits, and we're still waiting for Gerhard Berger to come through. Never mind the two Benettons. Well, Ayrton Senna has extended his lead, and this may well be, I think I'm getting excited over something that didn't merit as much excitement, because I suspect that it was just a precautionary tyre stop, although that notice puncture question. Jonathan Palmer, news please.
Ricardo, we saw your car stop, we saw you get pushed back on. What happened in the incident?
I think there was some dust or some oil or something. The car just went sideways without knowing why. And I spun probably some dust that some people took into the truck.
Very, very hard luck, Ricardo. Was the engine problem a consequence of that spin, do you think?
No. I think the engine started to go after 20 laps. The note of the engine changed. It was not pushing anymore. It was very deaf, and I had the feeling that I couldn't finish the race because of that. In effect, he broke down.
Ricardo, thank you.
Poor Riccardo Patrese, one of the most popular men in Grand Prix racing, and it falls to his lot, leading the Hungarian Grand Prix, to have the only engine problem that Renault have had in 2 years. And now on lap 63, Senna is second, Senna is in the lead. Gerhard Berger is shown as in second position. Schumacher third. Now here is Nigel Mansell coming towards us, and he is down in sixth position. He's got it all to do.
Yes, Nigel Mansell needs 4 points today to win the World Championship, or to make it, to secure it mathematically, as well as in reality, which means that he has got to fight his way up to third place. He's in striking distance, he's on fresh tyres, so if a puncture was his only problem, then he should be able to really motor. Now there he is, and that is 14 seconds to Mika Häkkinen, and he should be able to catch that very quickly.
So he's on lap 64 in this 77 laps race. There is the inexorable Ayrton Senna leading on his 64th lap, lapping in 1 minute 21. Jonathan, news of Nigel Mansell.
Yeah, it's afraid so. It's not been Williams' day. I've just spoken to Lee Gogg, the Goodyear Supremo, and he reports that Mansell had a puncture in the left rear tyre. It had just 7 psi on it, which is half their normal running pressure.
Right, well, now Nigel Mansell as off goes Schumacher. Now that is going to help Nigel Mansell because Schumacher was in 3rd place. That means to say that Mansell is now in 5th position behind Mika Häkkinen, and you see that piece of the car fly off.
And that was the rear wing that appeared to come off of its own accord on Schumacher's car, and that is a terrible thing to happen. That's the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous failures a racing car can have. But the gravel trap has caught Schumacher's car, and very frightening indeed for him, because he probably doesn't even know what happened there, in that the car would just have gone completely light at the back and would have almost been flying. These cars would develop lift at that sort of speed without the rear wing, and let's hope the rear wing didn't hit anybody on its way down, because that would have gone pretty high up, and well, they're pushing. And now I think we're going to see it again, and we'll see that Schumacher. Oh well, that may be what. If there was contact there with Martin Brundle, maybe that damaged the wing support on Schumacher's car. I should suspect that's why we're seeing that replay, and that is a possibility. And
well, now the excitement is behind the cars that you're looking at now. Senna is leading by 48 points. Berger is 2nd, you're looking at him. Brundle is in 3rd place. Mika Häkkinen is 4th. But Mansell is now only 4 seconds in 5th position behind the Finnish driver in the Lotus, as a very disappointed but very lucky Michael Schumacher walks in. Now Mansell has got to finish 3rd here to win the World Championship. He's in 5th position at the present moment, and in that 3rd place, well now there's Brundle attacking Berger. Martin Brundle attacking Gerhard Berger. Senna is on his 66th lap. It's all coming to life in Hungary, and Gerhard Berger is on the harder compound tyres.
And there is Mansell. He's caught them because Gerhard Berger has really slowed down. He's holding both Brundle and Häkkinen right up ahead of him, which was probably how we had the contact between those two Benettons that may have damaged that rear wing support. And Mansell now needs to make 3rd place. 3rd place to be champion. So Brundle, who's currently in 3rd place, and Mansell will do the Lotus now. Mansell goes past. Mika Häkkinen fights back, but Mansell has clearly got him. And Martin Brundle stands between Nigel Mansell and him at winning the World Championship today.
And Mansell will know that. The radio will have told him. So Senna leads. Never mind that. This is the excitement. Berger is in 2nd place. We're with Nigel Mansell now. It's a replay of him going through, passing Mika Häkkinen's Lotus Ford up into 4th position. One more place will ensure the championship for Nigel Mansell if he can finish in that place 3rd. And Martin Brundle is the man. So it's Berger 2nd, Brundle 3rd, Mansell 4th, Häkkinen in 5th position. Senna is leading on lap 67 out of 77. It's McLaren leading, McLaren 2nd, Benetton 3rd, Williams 4th, and Häkkinen in 5th position. Schumacher out, of course.
Well, Mansell really should do this pretty easily now. We've seen that the Benetton isn't that fast on the straight. It's not as quick as the McLaren. Mansell can take his time. He's got some nearly 10 laps in which to make his move, and he's perfectly placed, and Mansell goes back into World Championship winning order, as it were. The door slammed on him there, but no problem. He'll catch that group, and Mansell's already passed Gerhard Berger twice in this race, and I see no reason why he shouldn't come right past him the next time round when they get to the start-finish straight, and Ayrton Senna into the pits.
Yes, now Mansell could still win this race. Senna is going to change tyres. Remember that he was on the softer compound tyres. I thought this might happen. He's been pushed very hard, although he's been able to control the race pretty well. Very quick stop. 6.33 seconds for Ayrton Senna. He will rejoin the race in the lead because he had a massive lead over Gerhard Berger. But now Nigel Mansell is in third position. Michael Schumacher walking in. And if Mansell can just stay behind Berger and ahead of Brundle, he's going to be world champion. But Brundle's giving him a hard time. Look.
And that was, I suspect that was a precautionary stop by the McLaren team. It seemed they had an enormous lead, and that was very clever tactics. They saw that Mansell had gone through a tyre, possibly by wear, and got a puncture. As a result, they had, as Mansell attacks, Mansell going to the inside, Berger shuts the door, leaves his braking later, and Jonathan Palmer has Michael Schumacher in the pits.
Michael, that looked an extremely dramatic moment. We saw the rear wing come off. Do you know why it happened?
I think I had a problem with Gerhard. I nearly passed him and he blocked me. I need to brake. And Martin couldn't brake anymore and he drove in the back from me. I think because of this my rear wing was damaged and was maybe already loose, and that's why I lost it.
Michael, thank you.
Yes, that certainly confirms what we saw here with the benefit of the action replay we saw earlier of Martin hitting the car in the back and Mansell pressing all the way now, and this looks inevitable that he's going to get past Gerhard Berger before the end of the race, and that would be nice if he can't win. Fighting second place, he's been up through the field a couple of times. This will be his third pass of Gerhard Berger if he can make it.
Yeah, so Nigel Mansell, of course, is on new tyres. Gerhard Berger is not only on old tyres, but he's on tyres of the wrong compound at this stage of the race. But Martin Brundle in that fourth position is continuing to give Mansell a hard time. Now, is this where the Englishman is going through? Yes, he forces Gerhard Berger wide and goes back into the second position that he had held, and Martin Brundle is having a go at the McLaren now. We could well have Englishman Nigel Mansell in second place, Englishman Martin Brundle in third position. He's right up on the rear wheel of the McLaren. Here is a replay of Nigel Mansell going through. We're with the Williams now. And you see he gets the whole of his car alongside Gerhard Berger, who has to concede. He couldn't close the door because Mansell judged to perfection the time that he needed to come out from under the rear wing of Gerhard Berger's McLaren. And Berger's problem now is not Nigel Mansell, who's pulling away. It is Martin Brundle, and Mika Häkkinen is driving a superb race. The Finnish driver in the Lotus 107, which is so much better than last year's car, the 102. So, Mansell, there you go. Now watch Martin Brundle. The crowd rises again as Mansell comes up to Paul Belmondo to lap him, I think, for the third time. But just look at the distance that Nigel Mansell has put between himself and Gerhard Berger's car. And now I prophesy that Martin Brundle is going to have a go at Berger as Mansell laps again Paul Belmondo. They're on lap 70 now, the leaders, Senna. And there's Häkkinen having a go at Brundle. And Mika Häkkinen said earlier on, yesterday in fact, that the Lotus was going to be in great shape at the end of the race. He's absolutely right. And the race order on lap 70, Ayrton Senna with a race in his pocket, 43 seconds ahead of Mansell, who is now 2 seconds ahead of Berger, who is in third position, closely followed by Brundle fourth, Häkkinen fifth. Capelli is a minute and 5 seconds in sixth position in the Ferrari. And if Capelli finishes, Brundle locks right up as he goes past Belmondo, and if Ivan Capelli finishes, it will be only for the third time this season, in which has been a terrible one for him.
Well, it looked to me as if he used the back of the McLaren as a brake there. He seemed to actually be leaning on it. A puff of dust as Berger puts the wheel off the inside, and there is Mansell, who is absolutely stormed away on his fresh rubber. Brilliant performance to the Williams, and here we can see it from behind, locking up those front brakes. Difficult to see from that angle whether he's actually in contact with the McLaren, but let's hope if he was, there's no damage. A wheel off there by Mika Häkkinen, and this is the one and only real battle, but they're hammer and tongs, these three. Berger clinging on, he's obviously really struggling. His lap times have come right down now, and Mansell storming away without even really pressing nowhere near the times he was doing when he set his new lap record, which was soon after his pit stop, but content to go well away from him. No attempt to chase Senna, and that he's well out of reach. But Berger fending off, as we know can be done here in Hungary. And very frustrated Martin Brundle and Mika Häkkinen, who could undoubtedly go much, much quicker if they hadn't got that McLaren in the way.
Yes, Nigel Mansell has already this season won 8 times to equal Ayrton Senna's previous record of the greatest number of victories in one full season. He's already been second in Monaco, failed to finish in Canada when he went off trying to get past race leader Ayrton Senna. And he's now in that second position that will guarantee him the World Championship. He is on his 72nd lap now. It's a 77-lap race. Berger and Häkkinen goes for, and does he take? No, he does not. Martin Brundle, who just manages to close the door in time and keep the Lotus back. But Mika Häkkinen driving a superb race. It's only his 25th Grand Prix, and already this season he's finished 4th in France and had a couple of 6th places. Well, he's filling the gap at the present moment. He's in 5th place. Ivan Capelli well back. The last point scorer at the moment in the Ferrari. 7th is Alboreto, 8th is De Cesaris, 9th is Belmondo, which is certainly the highest that the Frenchman has ever been. His swan song is going to be an extremely good one in the March, and Ayrton Senna well on his way now. He's on his 73rd lap. Mansell second. This is the battle for third. 3 cars: McLaren, Berger, Benetton, Brundle, and Lotus Häkkinen. And Martin Brundle has really come good this season. He's had awful luck in Grand Prix racing, largely because of the cars he had to drive, because he started off in the Tyrrell, did well in that, then he went to the Zach Speed team. He drove 1 race for Williams in 1988, then he was in the Brabham in 89-91 when he didn't have a chance of doing well. Benetton this year because of the faith that Tom Walkinshaw has in Brundle, and Martin Brundle has certainly repaid that faith, and Häkkinen goes through. Mika Häkkinen up to 4th position.
Tremendous stuff by Mika Häkkinen, because Martin Brundle went to the inside to block, and there was not as much grip there, and he went a little bit too early, and Häkkinen was able to buzz around the outside of him, and that was very good stuff. Now, the challenge for Häkkinen, can he get past Berger? Berger has already shown that McLaren has just a little bit too much on the straight for the Ford V8 in Brundle's car, but if Häkkinen's running less wing, Häkkinen will have to really scrabble to get past. This straight just isn't quite long enough. Häkkinen needs to position himself for the end of this lap. Puff and smoke as we come round. There goes Mansell. He's just finishing his lap. And Häkkinen now, the ultimate corner. And he wants to start wide and get a good run at Berger. He'll take a different line. And onto the power early. And he's on early. And that was a good line by Häkkinen. And he's right up with the McLaren. He couldn't be better placed in the tow, but the McLaren has got it all on power. So Häkkinen's got to practice that a couple of times. In the meantime, he's got a lot of problems because Martin Brundle is not going to go away, and he'll be there looking to pick up any mistake. So he's got to look at Berger and drive with eyes in the back of his head.
We're not losing sight of things at the front. Don't worry, Senna leads. Mansell is still running second, less than 40 seconds behind the Brazilian now. This is the battle for third, and I suspect it's a tyre story again, because Mika Häkkinen has got a harder compound C on both the left front and left rear of the Lotus, and he's got a softer compound D on the right, whereas Gerhard Berger is still running on his original soft tyres, and I think that Häkkinen's got a tyre advantage. It's certainly showing, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he doesn't get through and take that position, which would be the highest he'd ever finished. As you watch Nigel Mansell now, Häkkinen really pushing.
And I think Martin Brundle has opted out of this fight, and I suspect, I was looking at his problems before, and I think he's got a brake problem. Looks to me as if his rear brakes aren't working as well as he'd like, and Häkkinen came onto the straight fast then. But Berger's very experienced, and look at that McLaren stretch the lead as they go down the straight. So Häkkinen is going to have to do something very cunning to get past Gerhard Berger. He's not going to do it on the straight, even right in the McLaren slipstream. The McLaren just runs away for power. Brundle keeping a watching brief, but I think he's got a brake problem, would be my guess, that discouraging him from getting involved, and wisely settling for a finish at this stage of a Grand Prix as Senna goes through. Big lead.
On his 76th lap out of 77. Nigel Mansell will be going through shortly on his 76th lap, and then there will only be 4.8 miles, 2 laps between him and the World Championship of 1992, the first time in his career. Berger still third, Häkkinen still attacking fourth, Brundle in fifth position. Here is Nigel Mansell about to start his 76th lap. He's got this one, and then the 77th lap. He's on fresh tyres. His Renault engine sounds crisp and clean as he goes past us now. And Berger, Häkkinen and Brundle, but particularly Berger and Häkkinen come through. Berger third, Häkkinen fourth. They are now on their 76th lap. And in sixth position, it's still Capelli. Seventh again is Michele Alboreto. I say again because he's already finished seventh 4 times this season, just out of the points. Eighth is De Cesaris, ninth, an excellent ninth. Paul Belmondo in his last Grand Prix. 10th is Gugelmin, and in 11th place, and going strong, is Britain's Damon Hill. Ayrton Senna is now on his last lap of the Hungarian Grand Prix for his second victory, but if Mansell stays where he is, he will be world champion.
Indeed, Nigel Mansell due to cross the start-finish line to start his last lap at any moment now, and thoughts go naturally to the Williams team situation and what will happen next year, but I hope that whatever happens, that politics don't spoil the sport for us spectators, and that Alain Prost or Renault will help Alain Prost to see sense and be the true champion that he is, and accept whatever driver Williams chooses to put in the team with him, that Frank Williams chooses, and not use any politics or influence to stop us being entertained with the great drivers of the sport doing battle. And Häkkinen dropped back, and Martin Brundle having a look, and Häkkinen now having to defend that place, and I wish Brundle would do as he's told. I just said he was slowed down for a brake problem, and there he is back in the fray fighting for the place, but good for him. And Ayrton Senna coming round for a well-deserved win on the day.
Yeah, the second one of the season for Ayrton Senna. Scant consolation to him, I suspect, for the fact that he's about to lose the World Championship. But in Hungary, the winner is Ayrton Senna. Out comes his arm. He's delighted. It's been a typically fine Ayrton Senna race. But where is Nigel Mansell on the last lap for second place and 6 points? That's going to give him the World Championship. Here he is. He hasn't got far to go now, because when he comes out of this right-hander, dropping downhill, he will go into turn 10, the second gear, 60-mile-an-hour corner, and he's up to the last corner now. You are about to see Nigel Mansell become world champion of 1992 as Brundle goes off. Brundle off, and Mansell finishes, and he's world champion.
And a tremendous effort for Nigel Mansell. He's fought long and hard for this. He's the third highest Grand Prix winner of all time, and well-deserved it is. And Brundle struggling home, but Martin Brundle makes 5th place, obviously struggling. I should think a puncture, but whatever. He limps across the line, but he keeps that 5th place. But tremendous achievement for Nigel Mansell, and that is a crowning glory for a tremendously distinguished career in Formula One. And we hope that next year he'll have a teammate. If he stays with the Williams team, we hope he'll be able to race his teammate and underline just what a good driver he is.
Well, my heart sinks slightly because British supporters are already invading the track, and they got a lot of stick, and justifiably so, for doing that at Silverstone. Fortunately, the marshals are very vigorously sending them back again. They're not only British supporters, to be fair. I can see a lot of Brazilian flags down there as well, and they're back over the Armco. That's good news, although of course the race has now finished, unlike the British Grand Prix when they invaded. But Ayrton Senna has won the Hungarian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell, by finishing 2nd and getting 6 points, is the world champion of 1992. Senna, I thought he'd run out of petrol for a moment there when he stopped altogether and then spun his wheels as he comes into the pit lane. And it's victory for Senna, 40 seconds ahead of the new world champion, who will be world champion in 1993. Of course, Ayrton Senna is still the world champion from last year. And here is the new one, Nigel Mansell. And that was his 176th Grand Prix, having finished 2nd in 1986, 1987 and 1991, having driven for Lotus, Williams, Ferrari, and now Williams again. The Englishman's supreme ambition has been brilliantly achieved, and no one can say that he didn't drive a superb race. One's heart must go out to Riccardo Patrese, the only man who seemed to have a realistic chance of beating Nigel Mansell, who went out of the race when his Renault engine let go after he had spun off the circuit. And there you can see the crowd, and now the race is over, and they're really pouring over the Armco. Nigel Mansell is going to be subjected to the same vigorous enthusiasm that he experienced after Silverstone. Berger was 3rd, Häkkinen was 4th, and that is the 2nd time this season that the Finnish driver has finished in that position. Martin Brundle just finished 6th, and the last World Championship point in Hungary went to Ivan Capelli, and the fans are letting Mansell through. That's good. For yourselves, because you were looking through the camera of Nigel Mansell's Williams, and I must confess to suffering some emotion myself. I've been following Nigel Mansell's career since 1980 in Formula One, and long before that when he was a Formula Ford, Formula 3, Formula 2 driver, and then he joined the Lotus team, where thanks to the late Colin Chapman he got the break he deserved and the support he deserved, and Nigel went on to join the Williams team in a situation where at that time, to be quite honest, he was not seen as world champion potential, but he certainly proved people wrong, because he has now won the 29 Grand Prix, 3rd only, and that's the spin there of Michael Schumacher, and Frank Williams is with Jonathan Palmer.
Well, Frank, it's been 5 years since you won the World Drivers' Championship. How does it feel to be there now after that brilliant effort?
Pissed off it took so long, Jonathan, quite frankly. Now that it's here, we're thrilled a bit, especially for Nigel.
It's absolutely superb, isn't it? But it wasn't exactly a race to keep the blood pressure down, was it?
wonderful television. All the people got their money's worth today, and that's important.
Well, everyone's very, very proud of the whole Williams team and Nigel Mansell's effort. Well done, Paul at Williams.
Thank you very much, John. Thanks.
It is still theoretically possible for, as you watch now, the rear wing flying off Michael Schumacher's Benetton Ford, and a very lucky Michael getting away with it. That's the right-hander after start and finish straight. There's a nice wide runoff area there. First of all grass and then gravel, and it stopped him before the Armco, and he was unhurt. But so Nigel, after all these years, has achieved his ambition. Williams have not yet clinched mathematically the World Championship. As in theory they could be beaten. In practice I can't see that it could possibly happen. So Brundle closes up on Schumacher's car on this replay, and then you saw what happened. Off came the rear wing, out went Michael Schumacher. Senna wins, and we're losing sight slightly of the fact that that was his 35th Grand Prix victory, and an extremely fine one, starting as he had on soft tyres, softer compound tyres, hopefully to get past the two Williams of pole position man Riccardo Patrese and second on the grid Nigel Mansell at the start. Because of the tyre advantage he hoped he had. He didn't do so, but he drove a superb race to finish on those tyres, and there he is, Ayrton Senna with his teammate Gerhard Berger. Now where is Nigel Mansell? There he is, limping in, so he's had some sort of a problem in the car again, but he's understandably all smiles. Formula One Grand Prix racing seems to take more out of Nigel Mansell than it does out of most people. I remember after the Monaco Grand Prix this year, he literally collapsed on the ground. I think he's going to be saying afterwards that his leg went numb, because that's what it certainly looks like. But the moment is shared between winner in Hungary, Ayrton Senna, in the centre, and on the left, the new world champion, Nigel Mansell, as the anthem plays.
And now for the winning constructor.
for the signal.
First Nigel.
I'm just waiting for the signal, Ayrton.
No, please.
No, you've got to go
I need the rest. I need the
first time.
Is that ready?
Ayrton Senna's second win of the year in an absolutely thrilling Grand Prix. But Ayrton, if you'll excuse us, we'll go first of all to Nigel Mansell. Nigel, the moment you've dreamed of and worked for, all the trials and sacrifice, now we can call you world champion. How do you feel?
I don't know how to answer it. After driving for 30 years and being second twice to Ayrton and once to Alain, you know, you think that you're never going to crack it, and I think that race was interesting to say the least, wasn't it? So I don't think I'll take it in for a little while, so if you'll speak to the others, I'll sit here quietly for a minute.
Ayrton, I'll just come to you because you had a superb race. You drove defensively in the first half and then you really piled on the pressure in the second half. Your motivation is still very high, isn't it?
Well, I think I'm driving just as good as I ever driven my whole career. The experience I have got today is something that only time can give you. And the race was a great race for me, a great result. I didn't really expect to win unless I could take the lead.